Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Measure for Measure, and today we get to hear from the Duke in the last tidbit of Act 3, which in the folio is just Act 3, Scene 1, it's just Act 3. And in other versions it's called Act 3, Scene 2, because they felt that things should be split up, because at this point in the scene, we get to see the clowns again, and oftentimes he liked to put the clowns in their own scene. So we started off with Pompey being arrested and asking Lucio to bail him out, and Lucio saying, "No, I will not bail you out." And then Lucio was talking to the Duke and ripping on him and, saying the Duke is disguised as a friar right now. Lucio was saying that the Duke himself was not a good man necessarily, that he was prone to all sorts of nasty vices and that sort of thing, but he doesn't realize that he's talking to the Duke and accusing him of these exact things. And then he leaves, and the Duke has a moment to pontificate where he's like, has there ever been a king that has escaped some sort of criticism by the people? But then the Provost and Aeschylus and Mistress Overdone come in, and Mistress Overdone is being arrested because Lucio ratted her out, but she turns around and tells us that Lucio actually got one of her girls pregnant and there was a baby involved. He's not taking responsibility for it, all that sort of thing. And Aeschylus is like, okay, bring Lucio ahead in front of me. And Mistress Overdone is taken away to be arrested, and Aeschylus mentions to the Provost that there's nothing that can be done in Claudio's case, that Angelo is firm, that he's going to die tomorrow. And the Provost is like, well, this friar was just in talking to him. And Aeschylus is like, hey, who are you? And the Duke is like, I'm a friar. He's like, so how's the world? And he's like, oh, the world is still turning. And he's like, so I hear that you've been chatting with Claudio. How's he doing? And the Duke is like, well, I prepared him for death. Like, he's good. He's like set with the whole thing. That'll be fine. It'll be fine. And they go off to part ways. Aeschylus is going to go and chat with Claudio just a little bit more. And the Duke gets a moment by himself on the stage at the very end of the scene to make it feel like an act break, which I guess it is. But as Aeschylus and the Provost are leaving, he says, "Peace be with you." He who the sword of heaven will bear should be as holy as severe, pattern in himself to know, grace to stand and virtue go, more nor less to others paying than by self-offences weighing. Shame to him whose cruel striking kills for faults of his own liking. Twice treble shame on Angelo to weed my vice and let his grow. Oh, what may man within him hide, though angel on the outward side? How may likeness made in crimes make practice on the times to draw with idle spider strings most ponderous and substantial things? Craft against vice I must apply. With Angelo tonight shall lie his old betrothed, but despised. So disguise shall by the disguised pay with falsehood, false exacting, and perform an old contracting. And that's the end of the act. So what he's saying here is that Angelo should be more pious than he is being with the proposition that he has made to Isabel. Everybody knows that this thing that Angelo has asked Isabella to do is not cool, and it's not an okay thing to ask. And the Duke is saying here specifically that if Angelo is going to be the one to enforce all of these laws, he specifically should not be breaking them in such a way that he is breaking them now. So he's going to have to get crafty to undo Angelo. And then he refers to the plot that he has hatched with Isabella to bring in Mariana, who was engaged to Angelo, whose brother was killed in a shipwreck. On that ship was her dowry, so she didn't get to marry Angelo, but she's still in love with him. So Isabella's going to tell Angelo that she'll sleep with him, but Mariana's going to show up instead. So anyway, that's the end of Act 3. And it since it's this like little sort of rhyming thing that feels much more in verse than some of the other verse text in this play, and there's actually a lot of prose in this play as well, but this particular bit feels to me like if I was performing it in in the 20th or 21st century, this is probably where I would put the break between Act 1 and Scene 2, have an intermission, people go get some snacks, and then come back for more. So when we tune in again tomorrow, I hope you have snacks. I'll see you then. Mwah.